The title of today's lecture is teeth. And that's what we're going to learn. All right. So let's start at the top here. Teeth help us. Like, really? Yeah. Teeth help us with mechanical processing. What's mechanical processing? Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. Mechanical processing is the physical breakdown of food. Anything that physically breaks it down, crushing, squeezing, chomping, chewing, slicing, however you roll, you know, technically, you're kind of processing the food for the people in your family. If you're like cutting up lettuce for the salad, you're kind of like chewing it for them. Isn't that gross? Don't do that though, because that'd be really nasty. It'd be way easier if I just chew this up for you. Anyway, that's mechanical processing, not to be confused with what? Chemical processing. Yes, indeed. Chemical processing. Chemical processing is breaking down food using what? Chemicals. That's a great definition. Like what? What kind of chemicals? Hydrochloric acid, yeah. Acid, HCl, the stuff from the stomach. And the other big contributor here, there's other stuff, but acid and enzymes. Enzymes, like a boss, are what? Proteins, yes. Ironically, I think one of them is almost like a cannibal. In your stomach, you have an enzyme called pepsin. And all enzymes are what again? Proteins. Guess what pepsin breaks down? Proteins. What? Yeah. It's kind of hypocritical, but it totally does. All right. So, let's move forward to parts of the tooth. Parts of a tooth. Major tooth anatomy. Your coloring sheet that you've been working on. I'm going to try to find me a copy of it here. Should have these parts therein. The hard, shiny surface is called your what? Enamel. Good. All kinds of products are promising to build that back for you. This portion of the tooth is the enamel. Underneath it is a layer that dentistry is named after. This part is called the dentin. Underneath that is a hollow chamber filled with this goopy stuff called pulp. That goopy stuff is there to protect these three really important things: an artery, a vein, and a nerve, because there's living tissue in the dentin. And then surrounding the tooth over here in this area where it embeds into the bone is called cementum. Cementum. So let's start with the enamel. This one's fun. Enamel. What you should know about the enamel is that it is the hardest surface in the body. On the hardness scale, it's about a 5. You're like, that's completely arbitrary, Mr. Helly. What does 5 mean? Well, the hardness scale goes from basically 0 to 10 for like minerals and stuff, okay? The hardest substance is diamond. Guess what its hardness is? 10. Talc, the powder they use that the barber put on the back of your neck or whatever, you know, that powder, its hardness is like 1. Okay, gypsum is between 1 and 2. That's the sheetrock's made out of. Glass is about a 7. And in geology, to identify rocks and minerals, we all had pieces of glass that we would use and take the mineral and rub it up against the glass. If it would cut into the glass, it had a hardness greater than 7. Yeah. You want to hear a story?
Yes.
All right. Once upon a time, there was this guy. We'll call him Mr. Felly. Okay.
It's kind of like
Yeah, or
But different.
yeah, Chandru Felly. Anyway, his car was covered in ice, just completely covered. And Mr. Felly was running late for school because Mr. Felly was also a teacher. It was an old Taurus. It's like, I paid $1,000 for this Taurus, or he paid $1,000 for this Taurus. Anyway, it's covered in ice and frozen into the vehicle. Frozen inside of it was my scraper. His scraper. And so he had to be resourceful. What in the world is he going to scrape these windows with? He found on the front porch, from where he was cutting tile for the kitchen, a spare piece of tile. So Mr. Felly went to all the windows of his vehicle and scraped the ice off with a piece of tile, and noticed it was leaving like this residue behind, these little streaks of residue like behind. It's like, But Mr. Felly was running late. He was also a school teacher, so he had to get to school. Scraped every window, all the windows all the way around the vehicle, all the windshield, back glass, 2 side windows. Left these streaky residue, looked like a bear had like attacked and like tore into it. Just figured I'll wipe the residue down later, or he'll wipe it down. So he was driving to school, put the windshield wipers on, la 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 la. Residue wasn't coming off. That's weird. Anyway, he got to school, started rubbing at it, and realized that wasn't residue. Those were gouges that had been scratched into every window of the vehicle. It looked like a bear attack, like something was trying to get in the inside of it. Every window. So, yeah. Anyway, so we now know, Mr. Felly informed me that tile has a hardness that is greater than 7. Harder than glass, yes. So don't do that. Don't do that. Yeah.
What'd you do with the car?
I drove it till the head gasket blew up later on. I've always had good cars. Yeah, oh yeah, I sure did. I sure did. Or he sure did. All right. Mr. Felly. All right.
Do you have a picture of the car?
I don't think I do. I try to wipe things like that out of my memory. But it doesn't work because I make them live in infamy on YouTube. Hey, everybody. Okay. So, let's see here. It's made of, this is going to sound made up, hydroxyapatite.
Okay.
I don't know, it doesn't sound, yeah, it really is. Now, appetite's not spelled the same way that you'd, like if you're hungry, appetite. Hydroxyapatite, which is basically an alteration or another form of what's known as calcium phosphate. But they refer to it as hydroxyapatite because of how the molecule is set up. Basically, to have a hydroxyl group on the end that can bond to another ion, can be fluoride ion or chloride ion or another hydroxy ion. But basically, where have you heard of calcium phosphate before?
Chemistry?
Good. But in this class, where would we have mentioned it? In bones, yeah. 2/3 of a bone's weight is this. Well, enamel is way more than 2/3 of this. Like 97% of your enamel is mineral, which also means it's dead. Okay, so little to no organic material, no blood vessels or cells. Okay. Good news is no blood vessels or cells means no nerves, so this part of your teeth doesn't ever hurt. Okay. bad news is that if it doesn't have any cells, it has nothing with which to replace itself. Therefore, it just can't replace itself. That's not good, because you need that. Enamel helps you, eat stuff. But it doesn't replace itself. However, in your saliva, there is a high concentration of calcium ions and various free ions that help to replenish and strengthen that. Also, there's fluoride in the water that we drink. It's usually infused with that. In places where it's not, they give you fluoride varnishes in school, because fluoride ions actually put it into the teeth will help strengthen that enamel back. What is bad for the enamel, we will talk about here shortly. But let's move to the next layer. Underneath the enamel was another layer called the what? The dentin. The dentin is a lot more like bone. In fact, I'm going to just say it's like bone. Because, remember, bone has calcium phosphate. But also, what was 1/3 of a bone's weight? Anybody remember? That's right, collagen fibers. Collagen fibers, vessels, nerves, and cells. Okay? But it's not as hard, okay? What you gain in hardness, a lot of times you lose because of the shear strength becomes weaker. You end up with something that's really hard but also very brittle. Here we get a nice combination of hardness and also its ability to not break very easily. But its hardness is 3, which is still pretty intense. Okay. Then beyond that, this is the layer of living tissue that we have to protect. This is why that's why all your teeth have a blood supply. And to get that blood supply in there, we need this thing. We need an open space called the pulp cavity. They're like, whoa, I thought cavities in teeth were bad. This one's not. Everybody has this. Cavity just means opening. This is the open space where blood vessels, nerves, and pulp fill in. Again, the vessels and nerves are on their way to the cells that are in the dentin that are replacing that layer. Pulp is a weird word. The more I hear definitions of pulp, the harder it is to define. Pulp is the stuff that trees are pulverized into to make paper. Pulp is the stuff that gets stuck in your teeth from your orange juice. Pulp is the first word of a fictional movie by Quentin Tarantino. Each of these get me further from the answer. Here's what I've settled on. Squishy. Pulp is squishy. Okay? And it helps to protect blood vessels and nerves in this open space, because that's a stomach. Okay, hold on. There we go. Okay. Because in this open space, as our teeth are crunching things, these blood vessels and nerves would be jostled back and forth a lot. That pulp keeps them somewhat protected and stationary in that space. So here's the pulp cavity, and this is pulp right here. Finally, the last layer that attaches is called the cementum. This is going to be below the gum line. Cementum is the outer layer of tooth root that attaches to bone. Now, that's not the thing that actually makes the connection with the bone. Because remember, tooth is a lot like bone, okay? So, what is the type of structure that holds a bone to another bone? What do we call that? Like in your knee. Tendon is a muscle to bone. A ligament, okay? What actually attaches our tooth to the bone, the alveolar bone, is something called the periodontal ligament, sometimes called the membrane. But here's the cementum. Here is the ligament that attaches, and here's the bone right there. So that's what's actually holding the tooth in place. Now, a lot of people are of the opinion that your teeth are embedded in your gums. That's not true. The gums are just a very thin layer that goes on the outside of the bones, and the bone's not exposed. Your teeth are embedded in the bones. This bone up here at the top, where all your upper teeth are embedded, is called the what? Maxilla. Yeah. How about the jawbone? What's that called? Mandible. So all of your teeth are either in the maxilla or the mandible. They're embedded in there. Those roots are in there. Okay, here's some teeth. I got these from my dentist. Yeah, I did. They sterilized them. Some of these have seen better days. I took some of the better ones. Unfortunately, I dissolved them in hydrochloric acid just to see what would happen. They're gone now. They're gone. It does not take very much hydrochloric acid very long to completely make one of these disappear like it never existed. Okay. Outer layer, you can see, I'm trying to reflect a little of this light in here. Can you see how shiny that is? What layer is that called? That's the enamel. Now look at how different the cementum looks. It's got a little bit of reflection, but not too much. The cementum is sort of a yellowy color, and it's a little more opaque and porous, okay, just to help it to have a good surface for adhering thereto. Now some of these teeth have seen better days. They're pretty rot. They were filled with different fillings and things like that. They just, yeah. This guy's in good shape, except his roots were like gnarled into these other roots. There was another tooth growing out here. These guys were like, let's be friends. Okay. Anyway, we'll come back to that in just a second. Let me tell you what's bad for teeth. Okay? What is bad for teeth? Yes. If it's got acid, then you bet, okay? I would go so far as to say the worst thing to happen to teeth. Well, probably is a baseball bat, but like is acid. Okay? Acid. Acid is sorry, I just conjured up an image in your mind. You're like, oh gosh, that was dark. All right. Acid erodes enamel. It doesn't matter what kind it is. Sour Patch Kids. Yeah, sorry, I just stepped on a lot of toes. Sour Warheads. Anything sour is sour because of acid. Acid's rough on teeth. Yeah, sorry. Okay. Am I telling you don't ever eat those? No, that's not what I'm saying. They're delicious, okay? But here's the thing. Moderation. Moderation. In fact, give me those. No, I'm just kidding. Acid erodes enamel, causing dental caries. What? Carie? Yeah. Dental caries. Literally means tooth decay. Sorry if your name's Carrie. All right. Tooth decay, otherwise known as cavities. Tooth decay, cavities. That's what dental caries are. Acid caused that. Well, wait a minute. I thought sugar causes cavities. I could take this pile of teeth right here and dump a pile of sugar on it and leave it for 10 years. And I'd probably end up with ants. But other than that, these teeth would be fine. Sugar does not cause cavities. Sugar is non-corrosive. However, what happens is inside the mouth is bacteria. Bacteria! Ironically, that's what the commercial should say, because Activia is bacteria. Okay, bacteria. It is. It is. Probiotics is a fancy word for bacteria, but it's hard to sell yogurt like, eat our yogurt, it's got bacteria. It's like, no. Bacteria. Love. I'll just leave that. Bacteria love growing in the mouth. fact, the entire digestive tract. It's a fantastic place to live if you're bacteria. It really is. Okay? They feed on, bless you, trapped food and sugar in the mouth. And create, here you go, ready? Create lactic acid. As a byproduct of their natural processes, they go through an anaerobic respiration, and that anaerobic respiration produces lactic acid. That lactic acid lowers the pH of the mouth, and as a result, you end up with cavities, okay? Because they erode the teeth. They erode the enamel. So, basically, what you end up with is, let's look at some pictures.
Yes.
Is this yours?
So, nah, I've been brushing, going to the dentist and such. Went yesterday, as a matter of fact. This was very well timed. All right.
How was your dentist visit?
It was good. I didn't have any cavities.
Dental caries?
I need to get braces. Not this time. Not this time.
That was last time.
Yeah. See y'all. Okay. All right.
Big suck.
Now, typically on the surfaces of your teeth, you don't get this as much, okay? Because your biting surfaces of your teeth, like the very ends of your teeth and things like that, constantly being pushed through different things, and they're the ones that, if you're brushing your teeth, you should run up with a whole lot of issues. But here, on the surfaces of your larger teeth, your molars, you're going to have these little crevices known as fissures, and it's pretty easy for bacteria and food to get trapped in there. Sometimes these fissures are so small, even a toothbrush bristle can't fit in there. Okay, so if they get trapped in there, they start eating and they make lactic acid, which erodes away the enamel of the tooth, and these gaps get larger and larger and larger. Now, your dental hygienist cleans your teeth, then your dentist comes in, sticks the sharp tool on your teeth and starts pushing down. They're feeling for sticks, like where will this tool get stuck? If they press it in, if there is some decay, he can press that, or he or she can press that in, and it will get stuck in there. And then they've got to kind of pop it back out again. And that's a sign of tooth decay. And what they'll do to treat that is this sound. Okay? And they start drilling in to remove the decayed material all the way down to where the decay ends, and then they'll fill it in with a composite filling, which actually matches the color of your teeth and is just as hard as your enamel to fill in that spot. And they'll kind of grind it out until it matches and fits your normal bite, and then everything's fine. But if it keeps going, it can cause all kinds of issues. These pictures just get worse, and I won't make you throw up today. All right. So, anywho, back here, let's finish up a couple things. Now, you go to bed, you don't have this stuff on your teeth, you wake up and it showed up. Well, you didn't eat anything, so where'd it come from? This is gross. Plaque is basically a pile of bacteria. It is like a colony of bacteria that just developed while you were sleeping. Now, easily comes off with the toothbrush. In fact, this is one of the first things that they did, how they got people to start brushing their teeth. Like, hey, remove tooth film. Pepsodent made lots and lots of money as the first successfully marketed toothpaste. And then if this is left to sit for too long, then it becomes calculus. That's what I think of calculus. It's another word for tartar. 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 It's calcified plaque. When it gets to this point, it cannot be brushed off. It has to be chipped off of your teeth. That's another thing your dental hygienist does with that little tool, scraping at the base of your teeth, trying to break all that loose. That calcified plaque. So there's still living bacteria in there trying to continuously erode away. That's rough because they're on the surface, they've adhered themselves to the surface of your teeth and they can't be moved, and they're continuously producing acid. So that's why it's super important to brush your teeth and to floss. Let's talk about just about locations of these guys and then we'll call it a day. Oh, I didn't mention one thing right here, the gums. The gums right here above that pink tissue right there is called the gingiva. What do we call an inflammation of that?
Gingivitis.
Gingivitis, due to a bacterial infection. Healthy gums are pink. Unhealthy gums are red because they have to have more blood. The blood vessels in them dilate to try to fight the bacterial infection therein, and as a result, they swell up. Now the gingiva is continuous with this layer that surrounds each tooth called that periodontal ligament. So if gingivitis is out of control for too long, it can become something called periodontitis, which causes an inflammation of this ligament, which causes your teeth to fall out. Okay, moving forward. All right. Somebody read this earlier out loud, and they said, delicious milk teeth. That's what it looks like. This word is deciduous. Your baby teeth are considered deciduous, just like a deciduous forest. Deciduous trees shed their what? Leaves, right. So oak trees and maple trees and such. Pine trees are not deciduous. They keep their needles all year, but whatever sheds its leaves is considered deciduous. These first set of teeth are considered deciduous because we shed them as we age. All right. Now, we are heterodontists, unlike sharks, who are homodontists. Sharks only have one style of tooth and a whole bunch of them, okay? We've got 4 styles. This guy in the front right here is the incisor. That's the pretty ones, the ones that crest white strips were invented for, okay? This next one right here is called, they call it a canine. See that right there? It's also called a cuspid. Back behind the cuspids, these 2 teeth with 2 points on them each are called what? Bicuspids. And these in the back here with 3 or more points on them are called tricuspids. But if you want to follow the old school here, incisors, canines, premolars, and molars. And that last molar right here in the very back is the wisdom tooth. It's called the wisdom tooth because it's the last one to come in. Presumably when it comes in, you are more wise. However, usually there's not much room for it. And so a lot of times they cause your teeth to crowd. They either get pulled out or cut out and so on and so forth. Anywho, that's it for today.